Yo, what's going on, guys? Thanks for joining us again. It's another edition of the CTWpodcast. I'm Ryan Mackin, back here with Jason Freiert. Now we're finally bringing you part 3 of our interview with Keith Watson.
Yeah, this one we're diving into the MSWA. As you know, Watty's the chairman of the MSWA, so he's got a lot to talk about. And I'm sure we decided we're going to use this as kind of a preview episode for a future thing where we really dive into the MSWA.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface right now, I would say. There is some good content, some stuff that's really informative and that people can get something out of. We're going to talk about Fargo and kind of the plans with that and that whole process. But, thanks for joining us again and continue with the feedback. Love it so far, and I appreciate everybody being involved.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And if you haven't checked out the first 2 episodes with Watty, be sure to check that out, and let's get to it.
Here we go. Part 3 of the episode with Keith Watson. Here's Watty.
So, as far as the MSWA goes, I'm ignorant towards it. During a time like this, it's got to be an adjustment. No spring off-season tournaments, no freestyle and Greco. What have you guys been up to?
Well, the organization in general, I mean, as the Maryland chapter for USA Wrestling, we're really not doing anything. I'm constantly trying to come up with ideas, ways to stay relevant in comparison to, or comparing us to AAU, NHSCA, New Way, which are basically really not doing anything except canceling events. We have a different goal, which is my goal is to give wrestling people, wrestlers a chance to get better, wrestling coaches a chance to get better, keep the sport moving forward to some extent. And while we're on this shutdown, that doesn't mean everything just comes to a complete halt. I have a handful of people that I talk to on a regular basis about ideas. John Noggle, Doug Yoakum, I'll probably leave somebody out, Duran Bell, Kramer Whitelaw, just about ideas. What can we do? I like to be prepared so that when the door opens, we can hit the ground running versus waiting till they open the door, then start planning. Because right now, I don't have a whole lot to do. And I'm not obsessed with this, but I think about it all the time. And rather than just talking about who the greatest wrestler was, remember back when 182A was crazy hard at 103. Okay, that's great, the great nostalgia time. But I want to be ready to go when we're able to go, and have a plan in place.
Absolutely.
And if a plan that I have in place is not viable because we've gotten past the time window, all right, I throw that away. We move on to the next thing. So to answer your question, it's weird, it's odd. I'm getting kind of used to it. We have Monday Zoom meetings with all the guys in my position throughout the country, with Bruce Baumgartner and Scott Gist and Rich Fender, just to keep us up to speed on what's going on. And USA Wrestling is I think, laid down the sort of an edict. You need to stay active even though wrestling isn't active. Let's do things to keep people talking about wrestling. And you may have noticed or not on the MSWA Facebook page and the forum, about every week or so, I try to put something out there that's interesting. The most recent one was about the all academic teams. Generated a little bit of chatter, lasted a day
Sure.
or two. Remember when I wrestled you in the big show and you beat me in overtime, and the clock, first work of the clock, forgot to turn it off. Or
Did that come out later than it normally does this year?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I usually think it's like 2 weeks after states or something like that.
Yeah, because of you kind of got lost in the shuffle, honestly. The fellas that run it, Andy Katz and Steve Gutentag, they kind of had to remind me that we needed to do it.
I got you.
So I forgot about it. But on the other hand, it was announced in terms of we're taking nominations. It was announced at the same time, and then it was announced a couple more times. So there was more time for information to come in, and consequently, Andy and Steve told me that they had more people. Now they've only been helping me with this for like 3-4 years, but they said they had probably a third more people submit information.
Okay. So like during the lockdown, are you finding it that you're getting more input and more communication from people since everybody's working from home and is looking for something to procrastinate their time with?
Kind of the opposite. I feel like when people are busy, they make sure that they get everything done. When you don't have anything to do, you don't do anything. For example, I ask people for input. I rarely get it, but I know that I can go to Doug Yoakum, John Noggle, you guys, and so on. I'll get input. If I throw it out there in a sort of a shotgun approach, it's crickets.
Gotcha.
Now, I do think that the uncensored page has become it's a great way to get information out to, or not. It's a great way to get thoughts out, and it's, a lot of people think they just want to clown around, but we will get certain people that'll send me private messages with some insightful thoughts and so on. So that uncensored page coming when it did, along with the pandemic, timing, I think the two have helped. One has helped the other, but just because people have nothing to do doesn't necessarily mean they're more responsive. And when I send an email out to 5,000 for with a survey, and I get 90 people that will take 5 minutes to respond, that blows me away. I mean, I'll never understand why you're so busy. You couldn't carve 5 minutes out of your day.
Is that typical though? When you send out don't you do a yearly survey? Is it always the responses that low?
It is always like that, but it never ceases to amaze me. Because I will never do that. You ask a question, I'll answer it, or I'll say, let me get back to you. But you'll never just
right. Yeah, no. So, and there is a time that, it would be great to have you back, even just to discuss MSWA and the direction that's heading and plans that you guys might have at some point. The last one that I had was, any word on Fargo yet?
Fargo will be decided by June 1, but I can tell you where the MSWA is at this point. The sort of the ramrod of the whole Fargo project is Duran Bell. Kramer Whitelaw is the head coach. Duran is the team leader, and Duran is the man. Son Enzo wrestles for Bullis, and Duran comes from has a long history of being involved in big shows and travel events and so on. So he offered his help to me, and I'm like, absolutely. And so this guy has been Johnny on the spot right from the very beginning. He's got the military background, so there's a standard operating procedure, sort of involved a way of going about things, and it's awesome because I'm not like that, not to that extent. But anyways, Duran lined up our flights in December. Well, we had to make a decision the other day to what to do with these flights, and when Southwest changed the time, he called me up. He says, let's bail on them. Let's cancel them right now. The ball's in their court. We get our money back. And then if we want to put them back out, reactivate them or get new flights or whatever later on, we can. But at least this way, we've got our $4,000 back.
Sure. And you might even find a cheaper flight now.
I was going to say it's definitely going to be cheaper if they open it back up. But who knows?
So that's one thing. Now, the hotels don't matter. So we got the hotels lined up. But in regards to answer your question, what's happening with Fargo? The MSWA side, we've basically stepped back and said, as of May 19th, we're going to make a decision on whether we're going to do this or not as an MSWA. Here's the reason why. We need to get people trained, right? So if we have 10 days for people to say, I'm in, then we can collect the down payments, because there's a lot of people tell you they're going when they maybe they think they're going and then they don't wind up not going, and then you wind up eating flights. That happens every year. So we want to minimize that. But we feel like we need 10 days to get people to buy in and start training. Okay, that would be June 1, because the study was done. No matter what any dad who has a kid that's wrestled for 1 year tells you, the studies that were done say you need 5 to 6 weeks of training, 3-4 days a week to prepare for a big event.
Sure.
Well, my kid's ready to go right now. Yeah, okay, well, maybe not.
Right, yeah. No, and it's at this point with everybody, like the way that there's no real clubs going on unless somebody has a mat in their basement or something. It's almost like that. I know when I used to compete in mixed martial arts, and when I did that, sometimes I'd have an 8-week training camp for a fight that I had. but then I'd have 2 or 3 weeks before then that I had to get in shape to get in shape. And
Right.
I'm hoping that they're staying active and doing, and they're kids. They'll that switch will flip pretty quickly for them. But, I just hope that people are staying active in some capacity so that when it comes time to train, they're in shape to get in shape.
I think the people that are serious will do that, but a lot of people aren't. And their parents work all day, so what do? They get up in the morning. They're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z for their distant learning situation, and they're not doing anything. So we felt like just sort of level the playing field, we needed to create a situation where people that wanted to go to Fargo or Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is like the Fargo for kids. We need to make sure that they had a 5 to 6 week period to get ready. And we needed 10 days or so to collect commitment money, okay, from people. But what we found out from the survey of the 90 people that responded, only 7 or 8 people said that they were willing to go no matter what, okay? About half the people said, no, we're not interested. The other half said it depends on, pretty much it's all virus dependent, and how are you going to keep my kids safe prior to getting on the mat and that sort of thing. So what we looked at is we have about 10% that are really committed. Well, for that 10%, we don't need to be travel agents. We don't need to be arranging all these flights. Like we had 60 flights, and we've got 30, 25 hotel rooms and all that sort of thing. If these 10 people or 8 people want to go, they can go on their own. We get a couple coaches, and we will support that. But we don't need to get 60 flights lined up.
Right.
You get your own flight.
I honestly don't even see Fargo happening, if I'm being honest.
So
Debbie Downer. This is what you're going to see out of Jason, folks. He is such a Debbie Downer.
Dude, I am not. I just try to be realistic. I mean, I want to open shit up as quickly as possible, more than most people. But I mean, every time I present something like this, you got a large group of people that are just being really negative about it, and they're really scared. So I don't know. I mean, that would be great. I mean, but you got nothing going on. I mean, when we talked earlier, Watty, about the coaches thing, you had a coaches like kind of clinic already lined up this year with the MSWA?
We were in the process of putting things together. Basically, I've been talking to Brian Hamper about working something out with the showcase and how to kick off a certain number of. So it's just planning for the sake of just getting a general, idea which way to go, but nothing formal. Hey, but let's finish up on the Fargo thing for just to answer Ryan's question. USA Wrestling has not decided, and USA Wrestling at the last Zoom meeting we had this past Monday, it's coming down to Fargo. It's not USA Wrestling. Will the University of North Dakota State University allow us to be in that arena? Okay. Can USA Wrestling get enough people to go to make it financially reasonable to have the event? And I don't think they can. So as part of this, and this is without getting into a bunch of data, information passed forth to Bender and Baumgartner, they both basically, what they said without saying it ain't happening.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So, we're gonna, if people want to go, we'll do what we have to do to make it, to basically have the same level of financial commitment as we've always had to the individual. But again, we don't need to be the travel agent, and that's what we are in a lot of ways with travel. With getting these flights together, lining up hotel rooms. And look, I've never been a travel agent in my life until 3 years ago.
Yeah, a lot goes into it. Yeah, I mean, it's
actually, that's wrong. That one time I was a travel agent when we went to Delaware State, and I put us in a hotel full of hookers and drug dealers.
right. Yeah, at the Brute Scholastic Showcase. I think it was 2005, if I recall. Closing this thing down, is there any other thing that you want to touch base on? Anything that you any other advice or whatever it is? Anything that we didn't cover today that you could get into?
Yeah, just a couple things. The MSWA, nobody has told me yet that better coaches don't equal better wrestlers. We have a lot of coaches that are good at teaching the sport, but they're not good at running a program. When we have a coaches clinic, it's about, we stole this, John Lowe and I kind of put it together, I guess you'd say, but I basically stole it from John Lowe. It's how do you build and sustain a winning program? Like with John Thornton at Seamount Wright. Okay, listen, they ought to be pretty good next year, but then what? It's easier to get there than it is to stay there. You need to constantly be evolving. And all these coaches that, like I said before, they want to blame their kids. No, you're the reason your program is not successful. It's not the kids. You're in charge of the kids. You can change that. When we do these things for coaches, and I look and I see Greg Slick and Tim Fry and all these coaches that are in the Hall of Fame, I'm like, why do the good coaches come to these things? It's because that's why they're good coaches, because they go out and they learn more. The coaches that say, oh, it always worked for me, it'll keep on working. Guess what? There's going to be a point where it doesn't work. And coaches' education is huge. Coaches are going to keep our guys moving forward. You know, I wasn't a good wrestler because I didn't have good coaching. I was a good athlete. I was a good football player. I was all county, all metro, blah, 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 scholarship, you know, playing in college. I couldn't have been that bad of an athlete, but nobody was there to really help me learn wrestling. And there's a whole lot that goes into coaching. And when we're putting your time into trying to help coaches become better, the coach that doesn't want to come to anything to improve is the coach that's going to eventually, people are going to catch up to you, and you're going to fall to the side. So we're here to help you as the MSWA. We're here to help the wrestlers and the coaches and the parents become better wrestling parents. But we need people to, number one, they need to support us, because in a lot of cases, there's only 2 or 3 people that do 90% of what we do in the MSWA. All right, it's not this army of people. We need adult support, but rest assured, we are constantly trying to do what we feel like is the best in the best interest of the sport. And if you have an idea or whatever, to go on Facebook and post it, that's not the way to do it. Let's have a conversation. You know, if you have an idea of something that you'd like to see changed, let's talk about it and come up with an alternative plan versus giving me an idea and say, okay, you got to go do this. No, I don't have to do anything. And if you're not in the MSWA, if you're not a USA Wrestling Maryland member, do I really need to pay attention to what you're saying? I serve our members. If you're not a member, you know.
Well, I mean, but at the end of the day, isn't it, we still just want to grow the sport within the state, correct?
Absolutely. But it takes more than me. Champions at Wrestle is a great situation. You guys are able to, you got a lot of flexibility, and you got good young energy. Okay. MSWA needs good young energy too. And what we need is more adult involvement. The guys that are on the Uncensored page, yucking it up and talking about way back when, what have you done to help wrestling get better? What do you do to help Maryland wrestling? I would be willing to say most of them don't do anything because they're concerned about their kid going to a tournament, coming home with a 4-foot trophy, and that's the extent of it. What about the sport in and of itself? Most people, as soon as their kid's done, they're done. Down the road they go. We need people to stay around. Remember how much fun you had going to the tournaments with the other dads and maybe going to the party after you won a big tournament. I mean, we used to do that all the time at John Carroll. It was a great time. Why does that have to stop because your kid is no longer a wrestler? Be a person in the bleachers and help a program from a support perspective. You don't need to know how to get out of legs and count to the half in order to help a program.
Well, so you have a platform here now, Watty. Like, so we have a platform. What ways can somebody get involved, and what kind of help do you need? Like, give me an example of something somebody can do in order to be supportive.
Offer to work with the team. Like, if we're going to go to Fargo, which is probably a bad example because that's at the top, that's at the highest level. But when we're trying to run events, when we are running events at the various schools for the qualifiers for the junior league, junior kids, offer to help. I mean, I've had a couple guys that are now, they said, hey, what can I do to help you? I said, be at Aberdeen to help through the weigh-ins. Most people, I would think, I'm just going to run away, and that's being, hey, it is being helpful. That's one less thing that I have to do. So just offer to help, or if you see something specific, say, hey, I'd be interested in doing that, or just let's just talk and let me have your name and address and so on or your email address on a list of people that I could potentially go to. because we have an election coming up. I'm the chairman for one more year. We have 14 board members. 7 of those positions are going to change in June. Right now, I know of 2 people that are interested in 2 of those positions. To be the person in charge of the Northeast region of Maryland, it's not that difficult. What I hear from people is I don't have time. You got time to be all over that uncensored page on Facebook yapping it up, but you don't have time to help run one tournament. If somebody would be willing to give me 24 hours over the course of 365 days, you would be a huge help. Give me, an hour here, an hour there, 2 hours here, 2 hours there. It makes a big difference. It's not like I'm asking you to be somewhere every weekend for, the entire season. Just
so you think a good starting spot might just be, pick a tournament, go and volunteer, and then you kind of get involved with the organization, and then you can kind of
help with an event that's in your backyard. Help with the program that's in your backyard, and then eventually we'll probably meet, and then maybe we can figure something out. Look, hey, I'm almost 60 years old. I mean, it's not like I'm farting dust, but I'm going to be looking to, walk off into the sunset with an umbrella drink here soon. Who's going to take over? Now, John Noggle has suggested that he would be interested. John is an excellent person. I couldn't think of a better person. But things change. Things change in your life and so on, and he may decide that he doesn't want to do it. Being chairman, it is what you make out of it. Haswell Franklin was chairman for 30 years, and I get nothing against Haswell, nothing but the most respect for him. But the amount of work that I do compared to what Haswell did, I don't think there's much of a comparison, because we do so much more. You know what I mean? But we don't need to be doing that. I need to have right now, between Duran Bell and Kramer Whitelaw and Doug Yoakum, they take a lot off my plate. I'm the point man, and I'm the face of the organization, I guess you'd say. But those guys, they do a whole lot for me. It's really not that arduous of a thing to be involved with if you get in and you've got a good group. When I'm done being chairman, I will be there to support. And having somebody that's been there, done that, knows the secret handshake. When I inherited this job, I was given a checkbook with no numbers in it. I was given nothing. No keys, no nothing. I had to figure it all out.
Well, so obviously help is something that you're asking for, and welcoming, right?
Right.
But you don't seem to like the comments publicly on a public forum like Facebook. That's, what do you think about, obviously those people have an opinion. I mean, I'm just spitballing out here, this is just a couple of guys thinking. Why not maybe send them a message and say, hey, can I give you a call and talk to those people, and maybe take an approach to actually reach out to them if they're not going to reach out to you.
And I have done that, and I've got a couple people that are willing. We may at this stage of the game not really even need anybody. But again, you never know what's going to change. And a person that said, hey, I'm willing to help do this, maybe their wife gets sick and now they can't. So I want to have a whole bunch of people doing just a real little bit. And when I'm talking about the uncensored page, they can criticize me all they want, and criticize us all they want, and so on and so forth. There's no problem with that. I'm just saying there's a whole lot of activity about, hey, remember way back when? Hey, look at this bracket. Look, I had to wrestle this guy and that guy, and I barely beat that. Hey, that's great. But what about now? What are you doing for helping wrestling now? Are you helping the junior program? Would you be willing to when Hornzell was at UMBC, I mean, I'm patting myself on the back. I rode a table for 13 hours for him just because he needed the help. Most people aren't willing to do that. Most people aren't willing to ride a table for 10 minutes. I can't run a score clock. I don't want to learn how to. That way I will never be asked to. Learn how to do all these things. That way you're able to fill in, as needed.
Yeah.
You're more valuable to the program you're affiliated with. And I don't want to beat up on anybody in particular, because there's only, I get along with all but like 4 people that in the Maryland wrestling community. I just want more people to be involved, because I'm not going to do this job forever. It's a non-paying, semi-part-time job, a little more than part-time, depending on the time of year. And there are people that would be way better at it than me. They're more organized and so on. I'm willing to work. And if you had people that were smarter, they could do the same job quality wise with less effort because they're better. They're just smarter than me.
Yeah, well, so it seems this is like a topic almost that we can get into a show all you know, in and of itself. We've been talking here for a little while. What do you think about coming back? And we can open it up just to MSWA discussion if you want to.
I'm more than happy to do it. I see things right now with the CTW becoming what it's become. I remember what it was 2-3 years ago when it was just sort of a concept, and you guys were helping. You gave a bunch of singlets to Edmondson or something, and I thought, you know what? I just had a feeling, and I'm like, what can I do to help you guys? And I think I don't know. I think I was talking to you about it, and I said, you know, we got to figure out a way to work together. And then Sean, you know, Gertz comes in with his ability to do our graphic design, and we start talking, sharing ideas with this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, okay, so here's an opportunity for the MSWA to save money and for CTW to make money, and everybody wins. And we need to have more relationships like that, not necessarily with organizations like CTW, but well, you know, when you're talking about your tournament at Westminster, the first thing that popped in my mind, how can I help you? What will you let me do? And I don't have to be the head honcho. I don't have to be anything. I can work a table. I'll be a security guy. I'll be one with a pink shirt on that are marching people over to the mat. I mean,
you want to ref some matches, Watty?
I don't want to ref any matches. I don't need to have a heart. Hey man, let me tell you something. Folk style referees work incredibly hard. And when I try to get the folk style guys to do freestyle and Greco, the first thing I tell them is, you spend 15 minutes sitting in this chair, then you go over and you sit in this chair for 15 minutes, then you come out on the mat and you don't call back points. You basically are not going to break a sweat. Folk style referee, I'd lose 10 pounds in a tournament. Up and down, up and down, up and down. But I get $38 an hour plus travel and a tournament t-shirt and lunch.
I tell you what, I definitely want to do this again. We can tackle the you know, the MSWA. You know, I'm going to wrap this puppy up because it definitely has been going on pretty long. I thank everybody that was able to stay with us and watch this through in its entirety. Watty, I appreciate you coming on. I definitely want to have you back, and definitely want to, you know, maybe we'll base it around the MSWA discussion and talk about things that people can do to help or, you know, changes that can be made within the organization.
We're just trying to make things better. There no, you know, everybody has input. We welcome input. This is not a one-way street by any stretch of the imagination.
Great. Well, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Jason, anything before we close this thing up?
Nah, thanks a lot, Watty. It's been a good chat, and like you said, hopefully everybody's stuck with us, but we got more to come.
Maybe we need to go into, because it has 3 hours.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but thank you guys. Seriously, be patient with us. I know this is something that it's not really in my wheelhouse. And you know, Jason, you know, fortunately is much smarter than I am, and can kind of tie this thing together. But I appreciate everybody for staying with us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Adios.